CAT is not a test of, testing more about the skills of, how you could solve a problem. It's more about how do you manage your time. My undergrad degree was also hardened and I did not want to waste it. It's in computer science and it's in BTech. So I said probably Prodman is the most ideal fit that goes for me.
Do you think that non-engineers also have a shot at working in as PMs at top companies?
Yes, I would say that because even in the companies that I worked with, both the companies, the product managers were non-engineers.
Okay.
So it's not necessary to be an engineer to be in the product management field. Depends on the product actually that you are also developing.
Very good afternoon to you and welcome to a new series that we have launched on InsideIIM. We have Himansu Rathi from IIM Bangalore. Welcome, Himansu. Thank you so much for giving your time.
Thank you, Devan, for the warm introduction.
I remember you telling us that your salary is somewhere in a six-figure salary. You're earning a six-figure salary before your MBA. So, paisa to theek hi tha, then why did you go for an MBA?
I remember those days, when I used to code all day, and in the evening, I used to go and watch these business-related stuff. And I seem to love the latter more as compared to the coding stuff. I tried all the things that are there in that as part of a tech role as a software engineer, which is basically from feature implementation to designing complex systems. And I did love those part of problem solving. But what I realized was I loved solving problems on managing team much more than solving problems on machine. And I also realized I needed to a chance to diversify my options and work on a lot of more business functions rather than just being a techie.
यार आप हमें ये समझाओ कि did you face any challenges after going back to the academic life after almost 5 years?
Definitely, it becomes very difficult for a student, for me to become a student after working for so long. You become, and plus you are placed in such a very highly competitive environment where everybody is like after their grades and working towards becoming a better in the rat race. I would say that I did not prioritize my grades that much as compared to the other activities that I did. I did have a decent grades, but I believe that maybe I can actually portray and explore those other things had I if I just not focus on the grades. And I believe me when I say the initial terms were like as demanding as working one complete year, whatever work I used to do in almost a month. And that is the pressure that you grow and learn. And I think that is how we become more excelled at whatever we want to do. I think that is what MBA gives in terms of going towards that journey.
How many mock tests did you write? Because there's a myth that there are people who blindly write mock tests. Right? And also on various forums, they kind of brag, I have written 100 plus mock tests from IMS, career launcher time, etc. So do you think that is a good strategy?
I would not lie. I also fell into that trap. So I said, okay, let me also get IMS time. At least I got these two. I said that I will write these two mocks. To be honest, utna time nahi milta hai, especially since you are working. So what I realized was mostly it was towards not only writing the mocks, but actually analyzing it importantly. So I'll tell you in terms of what do I mean by analyzing. So not only seeing what questions you attempted, what difficult questions actually you attempted, which you should not have done ideally. And as a result, what easy questions that you miss that would have fetched you that marks. So understanding that trade-off is much more important. To be honest, I did write around 30 odd mocks in my time frame. Maybe it includes both sectional tests as well as full-time tests. And I believe it's more about like CAT is not a test of, testing more about the skills of, how you could solve a problem. It's more about how do you manage your time. So how do you actually go about, making sure that you attempt the right questions so that you are able to judge the difficulty level of each section and attempt accordingly. I think the benchmark for success for especially doing the mocks is basically ensuring that you are becoming a better version of what you were when you gave a mock last time. So making sure that you do not repeat those mistakes that are there from the last one, and ensuring that you get all the easier and the medium questions actually done through. And I do not believe there is an ideal number of mocks. There are a lot of people who have done it with one mock. There are a lot of people who have not done it with even 100 mocks. So it's definitely a myth.
When you entered IIM Bangalore, you would be some 27-year-old, you would be a 27-year-old.
Yes.
So was it a problem for you to maybe mix with people way younger than you?
To be honest, I actually wanted, it was definitely a challenge, but I wanted to groom myself so that I accept that challenge. So definitely, whether it's a fresher or it's 1 year experience, or maybe someone who is even more higher work, it's like 6 years also. I have not had a problem. I would definitely go ahead, interact myself, gel well, call in them for some project or maybe some case competition or some other stuff so that we work more closely. And I worked with those diverse groups because I wanted, as I said in the initial parts, right, I wanted to also decide and experiment with different leadership styles and see what works, what does not work for a particular set of individuals. IMB gives me an opportunity to actually try it out with safe, in a sort of a safe haven place where you do not have any consequences and you do not have any authority also. Normally, if you try it out in corporates, you have authority either because you are a manager or some way influencing the decision of the career growth. But over here, there is no such impact. So that is one of the reasons why I always used to go ahead interact with them.
So Himanshu, in a batch with more than 500 odd people, right, and with some of the brightest minds in the country, so what was the level of competitiveness in the campus?
Oh, our college is one of the most competitive ones. I kid you not. If you look at 2022, I think IIM Bangalore ranks as the most competitive B school. Literally in second year, everyone whom you meet is actually doing some or the other case competition. The college definitely becomes a lot of more competitive. It has both its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is we are able to pass on the legacy to our juniors. We get much more of a sort of a variety of how we approach problems. Once the case competition is over, we can go ahead and discuss. The disadvantage is definitely you do not get to you need to select the right team, work with the right folks, and make sure that you are able to go through the next rounds of the case competition.
So Himanshu, why did you choose product management as a domain?
So for me, basically, I had worked in two product companies earlier, and I loved driving those things end to end. And I've worked closely with those product managers, which is where I think the initial interest came in. Secondly, I also realized, my undergrad degree was also hard earned, and I did not want to waste it. It's in computer science and it's in BTech. So I said probably Prodman is the most ideal fit that goes for me. And that is why I wanted at the onset of my career to maybe go towards product management, and which is what I did in my summers as well.
How did you prepare for the interview?
So for me, initially we actually get a lot of resources from the placement team as well as our seniors. We have some couple of books that are always recommended to go through. So reading those books, going through those resources, these are like the basic hygiene stuff. But I think that should be done in the most initial part, like 15-20 days. But the most important part is basically practicing the cases. So you develop various teams and practicing on a variety of problems. So it should not be that a problem is very surprising for you. So that is the part that I did for preparing in terms of the summers.
So Himanshu, can you help our viewers understand the placement process at Microsoft?
So for Microsoft, the first step is basically you have sort of a CV list round. So basically you have a CV shortlist. You get your name. If it's there, shortlisted, you go for the next process. The next process is what they call a GD, but it's more of a case analysis. So you get actually a sort of a product design case, mostly on some very vague and a high level problem statement. You need to probably actually define the problem, scope it out, and then solve for it in a 20-25 minutes time frame, and need to submit a sort of a written doc and explain your solution to the interviewer. So this is the second step. And the third step is basically the interviews. There can be 2 to 3 interviews depending on whether you're planning for an internship or a job, or maybe depending on the number of candidates that they are willing to take as well. So the first round is basically more toward focused towards technical in terms of how well versed you are with the concepts of product management. And the
Yep.
second round is more focused towards what you have done in past, your work experience, how that can actually might help towards cracking the interview.
And what kind of questions are typically asked during a product management interview at Microsoft?
There are normally three types of questions that I've seen. One is actually a product design question, which is basically either you are asked whether this is a new app or a new thing that they want to develop. What will you do about it? What are the features? What would be the MVP for it? The second is basically your improvement on any of an existing app, maybe your favorite app or an app that you commonly use. How would you want to improve it further? So those are the product design questions. The second is basically root cause analysis. So you basically get to know if there is some problem that has happened in terms of an app. What can you do to rectify it? And the third is basically your matrices. So how do you measure the success of a product? How will you track whether what you have built and what you claim should have an impact is actually delivering that impact? How will you measure that? So I think these are the three things that I've normally asked in the Microsoft's internship.
So Himanshu, the craze for product management is going up and up, right? With every passing year. So we can see that in the placement reports, we can see that in the roles that are offered to these school students and otherwise. So do you think that non-engineers also have a shot at working in as PMs at top companies?
Yes, I would say that because even in the companies that I worked with, both the companies, the product managers were non-engineers.
Okay.
So it's not necessary to be an engineer to be into product management field. Depends on the product actually that you are also developing. So
Okay.
if say suppose you are in something related, developing a product related to tax.
Yeah.
So if you are a CA, you would be a much more better fit because you would be able to understand the nitty gritties about of accounting as well, right?
Yeah.
If you are a person who has worked in supply chain and you're developing a software that is working towards supply chain analytics or something, definitely it makes much more sense to get that niche as a product manager as compared to just hiring anyone over who is a generalist in terms of a PM. Don't think the background, it's a myth. The background has always and never been actually a deterrent for product management. It might be a problem for certain companies. There are certain companies who might prefer someone as a product manager as compared to the other, but it's never that you cannot be a product manager if you are not an engineer.
How did you celebrate after receiving a summer internship opportunity from Microsoft?
I actually went to Ladakh.
Ah,
So basically, what I did was I realized that Three Idiots shooting was there in IIM Bangalore's campus, right? And the
ah.
remaining portion was in Ladakh. So I
Yeah.
said that I should go and complete the complete journey.
So Himanshu, now you're in the final leg of your MBA journey, right? So आपका summer placements are over. You've worked at Microsoft for 2 months. Now you're gearing up for the final placement season. So how exactly did you prepare for the final placement, and how different is it from a summer placement preparation?
So for final placements, the most idea was focusing on product strategy rather than just product development. How would you define the strategy of a product?
Yeah.
So by strategy, I mean it is like whether a particular app should enter into a new business. Say Flipkart has X users, how can it grow into 2x?
Okay.
Those type of unconventional problems were more uh, asked in the final leg of the interview as compared to during the summers. Given that you have completed your MBA, you should be able to answer those questions as well.
Okay.
So more focus towards that. And the other part was basically looking at making sure your submissions are well up to the mark. You cannot afford to not be called in the interview just because your submissions were not up to the mark. You have to give your effort.
So how was the interview at Cisco?
So for Cisco, the process was basically starting with a case submission, and that is why I said the case submission is much more crucial because only 10 odd got candidates got shortlisted after it. And then when you are called into interviews, you had 3 back-to-back rounds. I had the first round was mostly on evaluating the basic PM skills, that we had talked about. And the questions were not focused on, developing a new product or something. It was more focused towards strategy. And that is where I said the placement process for laterals as compared to summers is you have to focus more towards product strategy as compared to product just development and management. And the second round was mostly focused towards your experience at IIM Bangalore, what you have done, your past experience, what you have worked on, cross questioning on that. Whatever you have written in your resume will be vetted out at that point of time. It was sort of a hiring manager call for me. The third round was basically simply an HR where they talk about the location and your view and evaluate your view as in terms of the company's culture. I think that was the process for Cisco.
आपका ठीक है, Cisco हो गया. Then how did you celebrate the selection at Cisco?
So I actually went to a trip for Nepal.
Acha.
So definitely after my selection at Cisco, I thought of visiting a country, and that was the easiest country you could go, given you have you have to get a visa in a very short interval of time. And I love the mountains, so I said I will definitely go there. I celebrated there.
Okay, thank you so much, Himanshu. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Thank you.